Let's head into the Zoom room where we have the superintendent of Catholic schools, Dr. Juan Flores, standing by. Good morning, Doc. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
We're doing pretty good. Just wanted to catch up on Catholic schools, the situation, and I guess we'll first start with the Bree. What was it again? The ESF or
Right, the Education Stabilization Funds. Do you have, I guess, an update? I know that when we last spoke, you were having various meetings with stakeholders.
Yeah, so last week we finalized the third proposal for the ESF2 funding. DOE received 110 million, I believe, and 10.6 million of that was allocated to the Catholic schools.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through a process of getting requests from the schools and then getting those requests reviewed by the Federal Programs Office. So we ended up with our proposal, and none of it is really final, because if there are some changes that need to be made, we can continue to make them. So I believe the proposal from DOE is going to go to the Fed sometime this week, and hopefully we'll get word on what's been approved. And part of what we're looking forward to is, to start the requisition process, so we can try to get things on island as soon as possible. But they all focus on the three areas: health and safety, obviously, social and emotional well-being, and then any activities that will help with learning recovery, to help us catch up on what we've missed because of distance learning and because of some of the restrictions on the school. So those are the three areas we focused on.
Mm-hmm. One thing we also talked about when you were on was the ESF1, and I think you said it was estimated around maybe 1.5 million that was still left over, and you were going to make sure that all of that was spent. So,
right.
Where are we with that?
So now, in terms of some of the things that we've put in requisitions for, like getting sneeze guards in the classrooms for the elementary schools, sneeze guards in the high schools for the cafeteria, HEPA filters that are going to be available to every classroom. The purchase orders have been distributed, and we're just waiting now for the vendors to bring those in. We put in a requisition for professional development for the teachers and staff on social and emotional well-being, including a process to just very casually keep track of where kids are and try to figure out if we need to address any specific issues. So we still have some funds left over. I think what we're going to probably do is add some requests for PPEs, because now that we're in session and using the masks and using the alcohol sprayers and using the gloves, we're running out of them, which is good, because that's why we got them in the first place. So we're hoping to maybe catch up on that, and we'll try to spend as much as we can. Hopefully we won't leave more than $10 left in that account.
Exactly. Are you still planning to do that study or assessment you were discussing last week, the archdiocesan study?
Yeah, we put in a request to try to get somebody to develop a criterion reference test to assess the extent to which students were able to continue to meet the archdiocesan content and performance standards. It's been recommended that go into the consolidated grant, which is another pool of money that we'll be receiving services from. We feel really strongly that that's kind of timely, so I've actually sent that proposal to Stephanie Flores at the governor's office to see if maybe the governor's office could help us with getting that set up and procured immediately, to try to get us to prepare for the new school year. The consolidated grant's a very healthy and very worthwhile fund that we take advantage of every year. The problem is that the next funding cycle for the consolidated grant won't actually start until October 1. So we're hoping to get as much as we can, maybe done before the summer, before the end of the summer, with some professional development. So we help our teachers, help our students catch up on some of the things we might have lost out on.
Uh, Something you've also mentioned before was, problems with procurement, and I don't know if you guys still waiting for some outstanding, I guess, products or anything like that that's supposed to be on Guam?
Yeah, and I guess part of it now is, even if a purchase order is presented to a vendor, the vendor then starts the process of ordering things, unless the vendors had supplies on the island. So what's holding up some of the things now are the shipment of things like the plexiglass for sneeze guards or the HEPA filters. We've ordered 390 classroom HEPA filters. I don't know anybody on Guam who has that in stock, so we're now waiting for those.
Have you had
Now,
it?
some of the schools have actually purchased their own, because when we started school in January, a couple of the Catholic schools decided they were going to get it on their own, even though they've been requested from DOE because they felt they wanted them in the classroom right away. So hopefully the ones that we get will just supplement some of those that the schools already have. But, fortunately, we've gone, I think last week was the end of our 6th week without a positive case in the school. So we continue to be really vigilant as far as, the social distancing and the masks and cleaning the schools. And that's especially critical now, because as things open up, families are exposing themselves to more activities and maybe to more people. And if we're not careful as far as masks and washing our hands and keeping social distance, then both students and their families could be vulnerable. So I'm hoping all the families will continue to be really vigilant outside of school, because we're pushing to be vigilant in school when the kids are on campus.
Are you finding, Juan, that students are kind of struggling with the grades as you return to face, and also just, I guess, being in this pandemic? Are kids in danger of failing?
I don't know that I'd say they're in danger of failing. I would say that what's being presented to them, the teachers are working really hard to make sure the kids can achieve as far as what's presented. But we know that there are limitations. There have been limitations to social distancing, that we're not teaching as much as we used to, or we're not actually able to spend as much time as we used to. But whatever the kids are being presented, I think the teachers are holding the students accountable and helping to support them.
Are you aware if there's any studies being conducted on how students performed during their distance learning, and then maybe even
I'm not aware of anything that's been done locally.
Yeah.
I'm not even aware of things that have been done nationally, except for some school districts and some Catholic schools have done their own assessments. And I think for the most part, the first grade teacher knows where the kids should be right now, right? And I would guess that the first grade teachers will say, while we want to play catch up between now and May, we know the kids are a little behind because we weren't in school as much as we wanted to be. And to be fair to the teachers and the students, the distance learning was a challenge. It wasn't the method that would produce the same results that they've had before. So I would say that we're probably going to find, even though there's no specific assessment, and that's why we want that assessment of our standards. We don't want to just say, oh, we think we're behind. We want some evidence that shows exactly where we're behind, so that when we start the school year next year, we know where to address those issues. Because that's the critical thing now. If there were certain things the kids have been doing well, the teachers have been really successful, let's just continue doing it. But if there were areas in math and English language arts and social studies and science that have not been as productive as the past, then let's address those. Let's take them on. And also, maybe we need to find some new strategies to address those, because as I've said before, the old adage, we never did that before, it doesn't apply. And in some ways that's encouraging. because that means teachers are open to different ways of getting kids to learn. And they have been adopting those new strategies for learning, which is good, beneficial for the kids.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed just with my son, since he's returned to face, he's actually doing a lot better from face to face as opposed to the distance learning. So I was
Yeah,
just curious.
you know, yeah, and I have to say that one thing that we should never underestimate is the role that face-to-face education is going to have on making sure we're paying attention to the social and emotional well-being of kids. Not the least of which, you know, in the past, both in the public schools and in the non-public schools, schools have been the places where concerns about abuse at home has been identified.
Mhm.
And now that the kids are in school, we actually can see if there are any concerns regarding what's going on with kids, and to support families who are struggling at home. So I'm not saying the academics are not important. Obviously, I'm an educator. I think academics are important, but I think the well-being of the kids right now probably will be foremost in the minds of the teachers.
Well, have you had any, I mean, that you can talk about? Because we saw on the public school side where there was a case, a really tragic case where a special needs student had informed school staff about some sexual abuse that was happening, and that it just cascaded into this whole, well, it was in the news, this crazy story. But on you guys' side, are you getting any of those complaints, Doc, that you can talk about?
Well, I'll be honest that we have had some concerns raised, but I have to also tell you that I have to be very careful not to lead anybody to any ideas about where those are occurring and how they're occurring. I want to tell you that one of the things that it continues to impress me about the teachers, they know exactly what to do. They know to go to the administrators, they know to play their roles as far as CPS is concerned, they know how to document whatever the kids are saying or the kids are reporting or what they're observing. But I won't talk about any specifics, but I will say that the schools are watching out for all of those situations. But at the same time, they're also finding ways to support parents who are struggling with some of the issues with the kids at home. Because that, I mean, it's all brand new. Kids going back to school is brand new. And we still have, even though it's a minority of the students, we still have some students who are staying at home with distance learning, although that number keeps decreasing every week.
Right. What I'm hearing from just some parents is that, especially in the higher grade levels, is when it was online, there was just a lot of assignments being given, and for whatever reason, students aren't able to get, like, you know, face to face. You could say, "Hey, teacher, what's going on here? Can you kind of explain it?" And so they were dealing with this high amount of assignments, and then boom, back to face, where we have students still dealing with the online backlog, are now struggling to adjust to just the new circumstances. Because I remember on the public school side, I remember last year there was this, and I know it wasn't like a written policy, but they basically, to paraphrase, decided, hey, this is a tough time. We're not going to fail anybody. Everybody kind of gets a pass, right? And I feel like the thinking now with the school, both on the public and the private, is that we're beyond that. No one's getting a pass anymore. Would you agree? And what would you make of that?
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think, Chris, the more important thing is, you know, and I've said this to teachers I've come in contact with, you should never give an assignment for something that was never taught. Because an assignment is either reinforcement of what was taught, or it's a way of formative assessment of whether or not the kids learn something, right? So if you give them an assignment and they're not successful in it, then you know you've got to teach it again. And so giving assignments just for the sake of giving assignments is really not effective teaching. It's not a strategy that gets kids to learn. So I think now that many of the teachers are reassessing what those assignments are, because they're actually in the classroom. I would say that the students definitely have a chance to ask questions of their teachers and get the benefit of having their teachers explain things before they have to carry out their assignments. But I would say face-to-face teaching, it's a lot easier to hold kids accountable. You know, to ask them, hey, how come you didn't do your homework? And if the student said, you know, I forgot my computer at school. Okay, so let's work on that problem. That's the issue. The issue is not, I didn't have internet access. The issue is, I didn't have my computer, or I didn't have a book. So we could address the specific reasons rather than just nailing the kids for not getting their homework done.
All right,
But
brief.
I think we're going to try to hold the kids accountable, especially in the higher grades. And there are a lot of concerns about students being ready to go on to college or to
Right.
go on to get a job or to pass the ASVAB or any of those things that high school seniors need to worry about. And actually the governor's office is working on what can we do this summer to help kids make up the gap from learning, and especially for maybe the 8th graders who are going to move on to high school, the 6th graders who are going to move on to middle school, or the seniors in high school who are going to move on to whatever post high school program they're going to get involved in. We need to make sure they're ready. And I think that's something that I let Stephanie Flores at the governor's office know that we're happy to come up with suggestions, which I'm bringing up with the school principals this week.
Right. The world keeps moving. Juan, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, there he goes. Catholic School Superintendent, Dr. Juan.